Hi again, everyone, and welcome to another season of Georgia football. The first game is right around the corner, coming up Saturday, September 2nd at 6 p.m. Georgia and UT Martin. And here to break it down for us and talk a little bit about Georgia football in week number one. A couple of former players, a couple of former greats, teammates, as a matter of fact. DJ Shockley, and glad to welcome in Russ Tanner this year. And guys, it's good to see you again and ready to talk some Georgia football.
I'm just glad to be on here with a man from Wrightsville. That is unbelievable. No, man, I'm glad to talk dogs, man. Glad to talk with my man Russ. Obviously, one of my best friends in the world. Went to Georgia, obviously, and was my center. Protected me for a long time. Now he's gonna protect me on the airways, so we're all good.
I appreciate the invite for all the people that made it happen, and I've known Scott a long time. Always appreciated your work, and glad to call you a friend. And then there's not many people I have a closer relationship to than Donald Shockley, DJ. I won't do it again. That's the only time. So yeah, we go way back, man. We're our friendship's going on 20 years now, and some great times together between the hedges. So it's really, really cool to be with you guys today.
Let me ask you a football question about that relationship. The center used to the quarterback used to play under the center. Now that doesn't happen anymore. Is that relationship less tight because of that?
The what, Scott? Well, what did you say? What is it called?
Under the center?
What?
Yeah, that was it changes your relationship with a dude when you take snaps under center. So it worked out pretty well for us. I am not a backside sweater by nature, so Shock always appreciates that. So
yeah. Thank God, Scott, because I played with a couple centers in my time. And it took me a long time to wash that hand. That's all I'm gonna say.
Are you more of a shotgun guy, Shockley?
Now, yeah, absolutely. I mean,
hey, I like Shock. I like Shock and a shotgun because he was athletic, right? I mean, he's old and can't move anymore. But back in the day, he could move, so I could snap it anywhere, and Shock would just go get it, no matter where it was. He always made me look really good back there.
Well, that leads us into the next question. How athletic do you guys feel that Carson Beck is, especially coming off 2 years of Stetson Bennett, who showed some real athleticism?
I mean, Shock will be the one. Shock can give more of this, but like we don't know is the answer to that, right? I mean, Stetson he's a generational guy in the pocket as far as how he moves around and getting away from stuff. And we don't know what Carson Beck is like. Shock's around it more. He knows a lot more about the quarterbacks than I do. But my answer is there's a lot. We're going to learn a lot on Saturday, even though it is UT Martin. We're going to learn a lot about what he looks like. Shock.
You know what? It's interesting you asked that, Scott, because a lot of people would say, yeah, he's not as athletic. And if you're comparing to Stetson, obviously, because Stetson, it was a big reason why he was the guy for the last couple of years, because he was able to use his legs and break things down. And, obviously things didn't go right up front and he was able to make some plays with his legs. But I think Carson has shown the ability to maybe use his legs when he needs to. Now, he's obviously not as fleet of foot as Stetson was, but this is a guy who can move if they need him and finagle the pocket. And you don't need Carson to go for 25, 30-yard runs or, go for a long run like, Stetson used to do last year. If he can pick you up 4 or 5 yards or can, get out the way of a rush or find an avenue to, create 6 or 7 yards and pick up a first down, those are the things that you want to see out of Carson. And I remember last year, talking to him before he went into the TCU game. And the first thing he was talking about, man, I can't wait to throw it. I ain't running nowhere. And then literally the first play he goes in, he runs like a zone read and goes for like 8 or 9 yards. And he comes to the sideline. I'm like, you just lied. He's like, man, it was there. I had to take it. So I think there's going to be opportunities where he's going to need to run. There's going to be opportunities where I think Georgia's going to force him to run. But let's not be overly excited to see Carson get out and try to make some guys miss.
His confidence level, I would imagine, Russ, is pretty high playing behind what is mostly a veteran offensive line. So he should feel pretty comfortable standing back there and knowing that he doesn't have to move or scramble a whole lot. He's probably going to be pretty well protected.
Well, the chances of Carson Beck not being a good football player this year, in my opinion, are pretty low. Like I heard somebody say, it's not hard to be fast when you drive a Ferrari, right? All he's got to do is crank it up. He's got weapons all over the place. And the offensive line, every time I'm over there, the thing that strikes me is I'm glad I played 20 years ago because these guys are unbelievably huge they're just enormous human beings. So, and they move so well. They do a really good job. I actually think the Georgia offensive line is underrated. It has been for a few years. the job that those guys have done over there. So, if they give him a little bit of time, he's not going to be in the pocket all day long just trying to find somebody. You've got receivers. You look at Rara Thomas and Dominic Lovett, and the guys you're excited about. You got your guys coming back. You got obviously Brock Bowers, who's going to go down as probably the greatest tight end in the history of college football if he has another good year. He's got weapons all over the place. If he can just get back there and use his brain, make quick decisions, get the ball where it's supposed to be, he's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country all year long.
Yeah, let me add something to that. I had a chance to talk to Said earlier this week, and he reminded me a lot of Russ when I talked to him because he was so smart. He talked about seriously, no. I remember it made it so much easier for me because I knew Russ saw rotation. He saw blitzes coming from different areas. He knew which way to slide. He knew how to communicate with the guys up front. And talking with Said, it was the same thing when I asked him about Carson. And Said talked about, hey, seeing rotation, he actually talked about what kind of ball that Carson has been throwing, not the ones that are going to be on the line, guys, some that's in a rope, throwing it into a cover 2 zone. I mean, just that level of intelligence from the guy that's in front of you gives you so much confidence from a quarterback. And it's one of the things I asked Kirby too. I mean, he mentioned, hey, having Said in that middle who's played so much football, it's been on that line of scrimmage the last 2 years, is huge for a quarterback and takes a lot of pressure off him.
Yeah, and Shock can speak to this. I think it's cool to hear a quarterback talk about the center. That's really awesome to me. But I mean, especially for a guy like Carson. Carson and Shock have some similarities in the standpoint, like they were in the system before they became the man, right? And Shock, I tell you, as much as you prepared all that, when the game day time rolls around, there's so much happening for the quarterback. They've got to process it really quickly. So to have a guy like Van Pran up front that can make the calls for the quarterback as far as where the protections are, there'd be times with Shock, and Shock's a really smart guy. There'd be times he'd call a protection, and as an offensive line that was, a senior group, an older group, we could correct him on that. So no, hey, do this, and he would trust us to know that he was protected over there. So you're going to have a lot of that. Van Pran says is going to take a lot of the pressure off of Carson Beck to have to get one more thing right pre-snap, because Shock percentage of Georgia's offense is a pre-snap offense, right? I mean, it's probably 70% of our success happens pre-snap. Sure. Just with alignment, assignment, decisions. So taking that off of Carson Beck's plate, especially early in the season, is a huge advantage for him.
Let's jump over to the defensive side for a second. Get your thoughts on, we lost, again, as we do every year now, it seems like we lost key players on the defensive side of the ball. Let's start up front, defensive line. Russ, we'll start with you. Your thoughts on what that group looks like now, and how you overcome the loss of Jalen Carter.
Look, Jalen Carter is one of the guys that the freaks around the league look at that guy and like, "Ooh, that dude's a freak." So he was just different. But guess what? The year before him, everybody looked at Jordan Davis and was like, "Golly, that guy's a freak." My point is the amount of talent that Kirby and Trace got to bring into that room, and not just talent they bring in, by the way. Guys like Nazir Stackhouse, who was not the biggest recruit in the world, is going to be an absolute stud in that system this year. And then, when you start thinking about Mykel Williams is going to be a guy on the All-American radar all year long because he is a freaking dude on the defensive line. So, you get 2 or 3 guys up front that are just man-eaters. I mean, they demolish people in front of them. It makes those guys on the edge, the Marvin Jones and guys like that of the world look a lot better. And all of a sudden, you're like, man, we got All-Americans everywhere. That's true, but it's because you've got some really nasty dudes lined up in the middle that are just destroying offensive lines.
I love the fact you talked about all 3 levels. You're going to have some really experienced players. And you talk about Mykel Walker. I think Jalen Walker is another guy who's going to step in there as a sophomore, played last year like Mykel as a freshman, and Malachi Starks, who played as a freshman. Then you add Javon Bullard to the back end. I know he's been playing a lot of safety. You wonder who's going to be that leader on the back end with Chris Smith being gone. And then you still got Pop in the middle. I mean, this defense is still going to be exciting. They're still going to be athletic. And a bunch of these guys played last year, which is great. And now they're going to have a different role. They're going to have a more larger role inside this defense. And it's going to be fun to watch them get out and go. So I'm excited about this defense. I don't think there's going to be any letdown. I think they'll continue to, play at a high level. But I think the real question is going to be who's going to be on the other side of Kamari Lassiter. And that's the biggest thing. Obviously, you lose Keely Ringo, a guy who's played a lot of ball for you. But who's going to be the guy over there? I know they got 2-3 guys working at that spot. But who's going to be that second guy to step in for Keely this year?
What will these guys be trying to prove in game one against an opponent that most people expect to be overwhelmed?
I think the number one thing is what Russ just mentioned is alignment assignment. You don't want to have any of the pre-snap penalties. You don't want to have all the stuff that happens before you snap the ball off football that puts you behind the chains. You want to make sure that you're doing the right things, especially up front. You want to be able to control the line of scrimmage. I know Kirby's talked about it all week. We have to control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball and impose our will on them. And it's similar to what we talk about, when you face an opponent that is, probably not up to your caliber, is you can't give them an opportunity to feel good about themselves. You can't allow them to hang around late in the ball game and feel like they got a chance. You have to go out and you got to execute. So I think the number one thing is, show the new talent that is there, but also execute at a very high level. And I know everybody's going to be watching Mike Bobo and, him replacing Coach Monken and how his offense looks. But I think the execution part of it is what everybody's going to really pay attention to, and just going out and playing clean football.
Shock said against an opponent that's probably not on our level. I think we can all admit here, just amongst friends, that UT Martin is not on our level. By the way, nor is 90% of teams that are on our schedule this year. So it's all about Georgia, right? I mean, and Kirby preaches that week in and week out. If we line up and we execute in a violent way, Georgia is really hard to beat. There's a clip online somewhere of Kirby. There's a lot of interesting clips of Kirby online. But there's one a few years ago talking about one of the offenses. I think it might have been like Nebraska. Somebody a few years ago was running some spread stuff and a lot of formations, a lot of pretty stuff, a lot of window dressing. And Kirby in the clip was like, man, that's great. And somebody hits you in the freaking mouth. And then things change. So that's what Georgia has done over and over and over since Kirby's tenure here. And then obviously it's reflected as good, it's culminated the last 2 years, right? But every week when Georgia plays, you poll the coaches, call them and ask them, Scott, you got guys you can connect to through all your resources. Ask them when they play Georgia, did they feel like that was a physical matchup or not? I think there's very little doubt that we're going to hit people in the mouth early and often. It doesn't matter if we're playing Little Sisters of the Poor, University of Tennessee Martin, or Texas. We're going to line up and hit them in the mouth. And that's what you want to see as a Georgia fan this week. A physical attacking style of football that we've gotten so accustomed to watching for the last 2 or 3 years.
Last question for you guys. When you're coming out of camp and getting ready for that first opponent, how much do you anticipate, Russ, as you point out, hitting that other guy in the mouth, guy that you haven't seen yet? You've seen your own guys and you've been hitting each other, but how much anticipation is this team feeling about just going out and pounding somebody else?
Scott, what do you mean? Why did you not direct this question to me? You don't think quarterbacks want to hit guys in the mouth?
How many tackles did you make?
I mean, maybe Zaire didn't want to do that, but I was looking forward to hitting dudes in the mouth.
No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. He tried to get out of bounds every time he scrambled. Don't let him lie to you. What was the question? Oh, yeah. Playing another thing. Look, everybody's tired of practicing right now. It doesn't matter if you're in the trenches playing offensive line or if you're a pretty boy playing quarterback like our boy Shock is. Like, everybody's tired of practicing right now. The coaches have ridden their butts for the last month and a half. You've been through camp. You're tired. You have more fights this time of year in camp because you're tired of the dude lined up on the other side of you. So to be able to come out in front of 90-something thousand people, to hear the band fire up, to hear the student section getting rocking and rolling, and to have a chance to hit somebody in another colored jersey, like, man, that's why you stink and come to the University of Georgia. It's not to practice every week. Like, that's great. But line up on Saturdays with your boys in that stadium, like, that's special. And these guys, I promise you, they're chomping at the bit, ready to rock and roll with it.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Russ. I think it's a fun opportunity because when you go through camp, and obviously a guy's best move. Like, I know a corner that's really aggressive. I know the Raptors are going to work against him. I know which defensive lineman is going to try to get a good jump. I mean, you know all these things about your team. And now, as much as the players want to do it, the coaches do too. They want to see how you're going to respond to somebody totally different who you don't know. And I think there's enough excitement heading into this ball game where, you come into a game where UT Martin's got a guy who's played at Ole Miss, a guy who's a transfer from Ole Miss, who's played a bunch of football in the SEC. He won't be afraid. They've heard about these offensive tackles that are All-Americans. They've heard about this really good defensive end who is an All-American. So there's some added incentives to say, all right, I'm excited about this game, and everybody's looking forward to playing against somebody different and seeing what their skill set is like and then matching yours to theirs. So it's going to be fun to watch both sides of the ball. It's going to be fun to watch the players and the coaches all get back into game mode and go against somebody else.
It's Georgia and UT Martin Saturday at 6 o'clock. We're on the air with you on the Bulldog Sports Network starting at 2. Thanks to Russ and thanks to Shock, and we'll see you again next week. And go Dogs.
Go
Dogs.